friends! I'm making a reading wrap-up every Monday until I'm all caught up. It has been an adventure doing this. Let's talk about October of 2021. My older sister visited for a few days with her son, who has never been to Pittsburgh before. My husband and I were vendors at the Three Rivers Comic Con for the first time and broke even, which was great. I celebrated my favorite holiday, Halloween, and I even had the time to read 6 whole books. In October, I was able to read 2 comics, 1 young adult fiction, and 3 fantasy books. Let's start by talking about comics. These are super kid-friendly comics because in October we found some old copies of Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Adventure, Volumes 1 and 2 by Shigekatsu Ahara. These are from the manga that came out when the Diamond and Pearl games were originally released back in 2006. These were super nostalgic for me because I saved up all of my money from babysitting the kids in my neighborhood to buy myself a Nintendo DS and the Pokemon games. Revisiting this time in my life through reading this totally original manga that very loosely follows the structure of the games, but has original characters and skips over major plot points of the game and is totally unconnected from the anime too. It was great. It was so fun to read these books, and I loved the themes of protecting and communing with nature, defending people who need help, and friendship. I'm giving Pokemon Diamond and Pearl Adventure by Shigekatsu Ahara 3 stars. The young adult fiction book I read was Meet Cute Diary by Anne-Marie Lee. This is about an Asian Latino trans boy, Noah Ramirez, who just recently came out to his family once his parents announced that they were going to move across the country. In between leaving his Florida home and living in California full-time, Noah spends the summer with his older brother in his college town while his parents sort out the move. But Noah has a problem when his popular blog about trans happily ever afters, the Meet Cute Diary, gets accused of being fictional. It is fictional. He made up all of the stories on the blog, but Noah is desperate to prove that the stories are true, and it is possible for trans people to find love. Enter Drew, a boy who is willing to fake date Noah in order to save the Meet Cute Diary. But as it turns out, dating in real life is a lot more complicated than writing about meet cutes. I love this book. I thought it showed how complicated it can be to explore your gender, to grow up constantly performing for other people online, and how challenging it is for imperfect people to love and show up for each other even though there is no other version of people loving each other. Some people don't like this book because our protagonist Noah can come off as spoiled and bratty with no real understanding of money. But honestly, I kind of loved that too. I was terrible in other ways when I was a teenager, but it was nice to have a protagonist who isn't immediately likable, but is still worthy of love, and is learning to do better to take care of himself and the people around him. Overall, I found this book was a fun exploration of all the ways that our idealized romance tropes are complicated by real life. I am giving Meet Cute Diary by Anne-Marie Lee 4 stars. Finally, I finished 3 fantasy books in October. All of these books were books I read for the Cosmere Crabalon, and all of the books were from the Stormlight Archive, which are possibly the longest books I've ever read. Starting off, I read The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, the first Stormlight Archive book. This book has 1,007 pages, and quite honestly, I'm not sure how to even get started on explaining what the series is about. So okay, let's start with some world building. We're on a planet where there are these incredibly powerful and destructive storms every few days or so, and they have shaped the terrain and ecology of the world, but also the society of the world. Like, people will build their homes where the land offers a natural shelter from these devastating storms. This story is told mostly from 3 different points of view. Dalinar Kholin, a powerful general who is leading the fight to avenge the assassination of his king and older brother. There's Kaladin, a surgeon turned soldier who was enslaved for unknown reasons in this book and is just trying to get back on the front lines and do something with his life. And finally, Shallan, a young artist who is trying to become a scholar and get the world's most powerful woman, daughter of the deceased king, to mentor her. These 3 characters are all connected in part due to their connection to the ongoing war. As we hear from their perspectives, we also get to learn more about the Fallen Knights Radiant, an ancient order that fell at least 1,000 years ago. They were essentially superheroes with mystical swords and suits of armor. Dalinar is learning about the Knights through visions from gods that keep happening during the storms. Shallan is learning about them through her studies, and Kaladin appears to be in the process of becoming one. This is an incredible adventure the whole way through, and I was constantly asking myself questions while reading this book. Questions about biology, ecology, solar systems, and about what it takes to be a good person. It was filled with political intrigue and prolonged battle. This book was tense and exciting, and I really liked it. I'm giving The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson 4 stars. The sequel, Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, is the second book of the Stormlight Archive. This book sees our three main characters from the last book begin to come together, not just in their military connections, but as a social connection that crosses class, age, and generational lines. The three learn to respect each other and even become sort of friends as they interact more and more in this book. This book has a strong focus on Shalon, who is coming into her powers as a Knight Radiant in this book, but her powers are different than Kaladin's. I feel like I can't say more about this book without giving things away, though. That is the complicated thing about talking about a series. I don't want to spoil the first book by talking about what's in the second. I think this book still had plenty of political intrigue, suspense, and even a few bloody battle scenes, which were well balanced with more philosophical debates, like, what is the nature of beauty? Does power come from within or from other people's perception? And can you ever become a good person when you've done bad things? It also has a sweet budding romance element, which I adored. I am giving Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson 4 stars. The last book I read was Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson. This is a novella which takes place after Words of Radiance, following a character who we got a brief glimpse of. Her name is Lift, and she is a child who developed radiant powers. She is funny, honest in a way that only children can be, and most importantly, she is kind and tries to do right by the people around her. Lift is off on a quest to search for these really delicious pancakes, and while she's doing that, she gets sidetracked by trying to prevent a mass murderer from finding his very specific prey. This book was hilarious, and at points it was even lighthearted as we got to spend time with this child who is simply doing her best to navigate a world that is changing very quickly. It's a little bit weird, but the awesome kind of weird. I'm giving Edge Dancer by Brandon Sanderson 4 stars. Those are all 6 books I read in October of 2021. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Please tell me down in the comments, what's something from your childhood that you want a remake of? And if you want to see more from me, please subscribe, watch another video of mine, or support me on Patreon. And hey, I love you.